Tenants in Ontario are supposed to be afforded a high degree of privacy in their rental units, but there are a lot of grey areas in the law that are open to interpretation.
They all come under the umbrella of interference. The legislature did not sit down and do a laundry list of 3,000 things that constitute interference. They just said interference.
A common question for tenants is whether under the Residential Tenancies Act, the landlord can legally install cameras in the unit or complex.
I went through the Act. There's no mention of cameras. So I think we're looking for reasonable people to do reasonable things, putting a camera in the lobby, the back door, the parking lot.
Common areas.
Common areas is a reasonable, prudent thing for a landlord who has to be concerned about tenant safety.
And when a tenant is renting an entire house or apartment, it's reasonable that cameras may not be installed inside. But when it comes to rooming houses, that rule might be up for debate.
A rooming house is not an apartment building. So is a landlord reasonable in saying, I want a camera in the kitchen? Maybe yes, maybe no. And sometimes it does rise clearly to the level of harassment. Really, if I phoned up a landlord and he said, well, we've had 3 break-ins, we have 3 fights, I have to do something, I want a camera. And I'm not putting it in their rooms, but it's for their safety and protection too. That might sound reasonable to me.
Right. Entry into the rental unit is also an area of concern for tenants. As per the RTA, a landlord can enter a unit without notice either for an emergency or with the consent of the tenant. For other reasons, they must provide 24 hours notice.
They can come in to do a repair maintenance on 24 hours notice. They can come in with an insurer or a mortgagee to take a look at the property on 24 hours notice. On 24 hours notice, with the written consent of the landlord, a real estate agent can come in with a prospective buyer to take a look at the place.
But when the tenant gives the landlord notice that they're moving out,
it's kind of open season. The landlord can bring tenants in just at will when the prospective tenants are available.
Another frequent question about privacy is whether a landlord can keep tabs on or dictate when a tenant may have guests over. Andrews says tenants can invite guests freely, have them stay overnight, or even move in legally without any obligation to inform the landlord.
Subject to overcrowding. You live in a bachelor apartment and you want to move in your 10 family members, right? Okay, that's overcrowding.
If a tenant feels a landlord is infringing on their rights to privacy, they have recourse at the Landlord and Tenant Board.
Well, it's a T2 application for interference. And I understand it's still a free application, and I understand it might be heard in a year and a half.
Now, given the ongoing delays at the Landlord and Tenant Board, Andrews says it might be best for landlords and tenants to come to an agreement on their own that's acceptable to all parties. For City News, I'm Dilshad Burman.